when Elmer said I looked terrible and I got fixed, I was like, y'all look so pretty. But I was screaming about the house. I looked like a hobbit. I look terrible.
Probably bad.
I've deleted and tried to burn every feature of me before I had at least something like it.
You should have kept them for good memories. You know, like that was a phase in my life. So.
These should have not been funny.
All right. How are you guys all doing?
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, already more energy than Monday. This is great. All right. Cool. It's like everybody actually wants to be here today. This is fantastic. Nice. Only a couple days to get back with the program. This is awesome. All right. So, kidding aside, it's good to see you guys again. So, what I kind of wanted to do today was kind of pick up from where we left off with last time, of course. We'll keep doing some data collection for the groups that are scheduled for that today and tomorrow. Or excuse me, for the first half and the second sessions of today, of course. Yes, Stormy.
Is there a reason that like the prior data when you download the zip file, it only downloads like 6 of them? Or one or a few? Like I downloaded it 3 times and like one time I only got 6 and the other time I got like 1.
I'm going to need a little bit more context to work on that question. Let me kind of finish off what I'm talking about for now, and maybe we can dive right into that. But I'm going to have to understand a little bit more about what you're asking about and what actually happened in that process. So, all right, so let's see here. So I want to kind of do what we did last class a little bit in terms of talk a little bit first, and then we'll split off into the groups for data collection again. So we'll do a little bit of briefing, get you guys up to speed on some stuff, and then just dive into things. So kind of as Stormy alluded to a moment ago with her question, if you guys had a chance to check your email, try to put your phones away while we're working, and check your email on the computers, log in, and there's a little bit of instructions that I had sent prior to the beginning of class, so that hopefully we can get off on the right foot and just start running. So basically what I had done was uploaded a zip folder with a bunch of data, really big, and so I uploaded it to the Google Drive folder that we've been using, that you guys all have access to, that you have a link to from Blackboard that we worked on last class. And I want to see if it'll work, that you guys can snag that zip folder, right, which is essentially a file, snag it, download it, and then see what happens when we open it up, if it actually will preserve all those files, because I know we've had a little bit of a bumpy road making that happen so far. So hopefully you guys have gotten that message and you've tried to do that already. If you haven't, let's take a moment to try to do that as we talk. Okay, so you can get that link from the announcement on Blackboard. You can get that link from just the Some Data folder on Blackboard. I think if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll link to a folder. Or you can, presumably it also went to your email, but either way, let's take a crack at that and see if that downloads. Now, is that what you were talking about, Stormy?
Nothing new with the old one.
The old what?
The old zip file, the one that said prior data, that was, it's like above the new one, and that's one that has like from 2 to like 92.
Why don't I take a look at your computer and see what you're talking about specifically? But what are you talking about?
This one.
That's prior, not pilot.
No, I said prior.
Oh, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're about PDFs.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that's all we're talking about. So don't worry about the prior stuff.
Okay.
Just do exactly what the instructions do, and I think it should work out, but just basically stick with exactly what the instructions in the message said, and I think it'll work. Is anybody having trouble with that? Okay, I'm going to do that too right now. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just coming to download that zip folder. And so download anyways. Presumably it's big, it's 3 or 4 gigs. So I want to start with that because then we can let that work in the background and then we can talk while that's working. So has anybody not had a chance to do that? Okay, Jordan, what do we got to do?
I'm just logging on my user profile, just.
Okay. Sorry? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's why I wanted to start with this because these things, sometimes mine took like 10 minutes to log into today, so that's why I wanted to start with it. You start this stuff first, start all this stuff cooking in the background. Yeah, I don't know, how many of you guys have worked in the kitchen or a restaurant before? A couple of you guys? I used to do a lot of kitchen work, and I was a busboy and expediter and janitor, did everything in the kitchen and everything for all through school and college to pay the bills and everything. And that's one of the things I picked up from expediting is you interfacing between the really, really busy kitchen line of all the cooks and chefs and everything, and then all the really busy waitresses and waiters and busboys and everything. And it all kind of converges right to you. And you got to plan out, right, when the hot food is going to be hot for all the meals at once to send out. So it gets this like, you get really good at prioritizing and realizing what's the stuff that's going to take a long time to cook slowly. Start that now, start cooking that on the back burner, and then work the more recent stuff in so it all comes out at the right timing. So that's kind of what we're shooting for here. Let those settings kind of work on the computers as you're logging in if it's taking a little bit of time, and that gives us a little bit of time to talk as well. So, okay, so we'll do that. Now, so what I wanted to do is hopefully assess the viability of that file transfer. Secondly, I wanted to then, if it's viable, then create a plan for taking the next steps with our data analysis. So as we keep moving forward, you guys have passed your tests, you guys have demonstrated that you know the basics of what we're talking about with this EEG processing pipeline. So I'm going to start moving more quickly. I'm assuming that you are with the program, that you've studied these things, you've been working on them, and that you know what you're doing. So we're going to start moving a little more quickly. And part of that is going to be learning how to script, learning how to program in MATLAB, learning how to understand the structure and the concepts of coding and scripting so that we can analyze more data and faster. So that's what downloading this bigger set of files is going to help us do. Instead of just working with 1 or 2 subjects as sort of sample token data, we're going to work with larger data sets because that's what it's going to work like in the real world. That's what it's going to work like in real sets of data in an actual lab. And so that's the idea. We'll work on some scripting. We'll work on some manual processing as well because we're going to learn how to script by virtue of doing the manual processing and sort of build from those examples. Does that sound pretty good? Okay. So along those lines, we're also going to be working on building some educational resources along the way. So I used this example last class, but one of the very first days of classes, Alex figured out how to do something new that we hadn't done before in class, which is make a little time-lapse progression of brain data in the GIF. Right, on the topography maps, he took the 3-dimensional heads instead of a still image of activity, he made a really cool little movie. Right, so I thought that was really cool, and I said, hey, if you figure stuff out like that, because you should be exploring and trying new things in the data in this class, let's document that so other people can learn how to do that too. So I want to start going down that road too and creating some educational resources that other people can use in the class from your guys' own explorations, and then more people can use in future classes, and then more people can use more broadly as sort of a public science education outreach to the broader community as well. So we can do that by creating these different training videos. We can do this by creating these different instructional aids that basically walk through the different steps that we're going through in processing EEG data, in introducing MATLAB, introducing EEGLab, introducing ERPLab, and explaining how we're taking those steps both in a manual way, but also explaining then how we're building into this coding schema, right? How to batch script, how to do these other things that people can find really useful. And so we can provide this very effective public science sort of education outreach effort, and we can add it to our class playlists. We can make it accessible to people all around the world and leave your legacy for, maybe there's a class of electrical engineering students in Bombay, India, who are working with some EEG data and want to, check out how people are analyzing it. Maybe they don't know the answer to a certain question, and they Google it, and it brings back your video. And now, you're helping out a class of electrical engineering students working with electrophysiology data in India or China or Africa or wherever. Like, that's really cool. So that's kind of my idea. What do you guys think about that? Okay, so we're going to work on also doing that. Now keep in mind, some things that we'll do towards that end, it doesn't have to just be working with MATLAB or EEGLab or ERPLab, right? We can also make these training aids and resources for actually collecting the data, for setting the data up for collection in the laboratory. We could also make it for explaining certain memory paradigms, explaining the cognitive psychology of maybe what conditions we want to contrast, or how do we build this experimental design so that we can use these powerful tools like MATLAB or EEGLab in order to gain leverage on these proverbial mountains to scale of the conscious and unconscious mind, right? Explain our paradigm that we're using a little bit. There's all these little nuggets we can do that really can be helpful and contributory to understanding physiology and the brain, right? So there's really a lot of opportunities here to create hypotheses, explore these stuffs, and then to create productive products. Does that sound pretty cool? So I'll walk through that a little bit today too. And let's see here. Yeah, we'll just give that a shot. Now, how's it working on the login side? Have we cleared that hurdle? Okay. Now, for those who've been able to log in then, everybody's cleared that, presumably. You're going to go to that link and download that zip folder. Has anybody had trouble doing that? No. It's okay if you have. You gotta let me know though, if not I'm going to hit the gas pedal a little bit. Okay. Here we go. Alright, so if you can see here, down here, downloaded my file. I'm going to go to, I can minimize this, go to my downloads folder. And let's say extract all. And then extract all, I can change. Now this is straight from the instructions I wrote you guys this morning, right? So you want to extract it into, let's say you're going to extract it into your class folder, desktop, my class folder, and then I created a folder called new data, and I'll basically extract this stuff in here. Make sense? So if we can all do that, then we're all on the same page and we use the same directories. And that makes it a little easier if there's troubleshooting that we need to do, the TAs to help you, for me to help you, your classmates to help you, because we're all working from the same framework there. So we'll do that. Now this might take a little bit of time too, but maybe not. Looks like it's cooking, it's thinking. All right. All right. So while that's thinking, let me ask you guys for some of your thoughts and feedback. So how many of you guys thought about the ideas that we talked about last class in terms of ideas for ways, creative ways that we can work on projects to parallel alternatives to writing a research paper? How many of you guys thought about those options? Okay, I see most hands up. If your hand's not up, I'm assuming you just want to write research papers. Okay, cool. So, okay, whoa, now all the hands come up. All right. All right, so what did you guys think when you were thinking about these things? What were your thoughts about it? Yes, Norman?
I thought it would be interesting to kind of do YouTube videos. Now some of them are done well, some of them aren't, and how some of them are actually.
Wait, some of mine aren't done well?
Yours are well.
What?
But some of them aren't.
I just played.
But some people don't really, you can tell that they don't really have a lot of experience and stuff like that, and some of them are like really helpful, and so it'd be kind of cool, like just on a like personal level to be like helpful.
Yeah.
To be able to like share that knowledge without having to like explain it to a class.
Yeah, totally. It's like a legacy you can leave, right? Yeah. What else do you guys think? Anything else? Yeah.
I think it would help us understand the material better than just pumping out a research paper and forgetting about it later.
Yeah, so it's going to be hopefully a little bit more helpful to actually learn the thing, right?
A little more practical experience with the two.
Okay. Any other thoughts that popped into your head? Pro, con, for, against it? For?
So would you do it like in here? If you would like to make the room and read it, would you do it in here? Do you do it like individually somewhere else?
It's a good question, Stormy. If people didn't hear what Stormy actually said, if we were to do and embark on a project like this, where would you do it? Would you do it here? Would you do it somewhere else? And I'd say all of the above.
And free.
Come again?
And free.
And 3?
Free.
Free.
Yeah. Because is the recording and stuff is
Like the software?
yeah.
You shouldn't have to pay for the software.
Oh.
No.
Oh, okay.
So we have options for that. So I looked into that a little bit last class to see if we can get the recording software on your computers. It doesn't look like that's probably the case right now, but that's okay. It's again, that's just a challenge or a hurdle, and we're able to climb that hill. You know, we get over challenges. The hurdles are there just for us to climb over. So can't get them on the computers here, but what we can do is I have that software on 2 computers in the laboratory downstairs. So we can rotate through that. I also have it on this computer here that we can rotate through as well. Now, I'll get to this in a little bit more development. I'll develop this project assignment with a more formal list and of requirements and guidelines for it. But I first want to test the water and get some feedback from you guys about it before I really dove in and directed that process. So as we do that, one of the things that's definitely going to be a part of this, and I've done this in certain other classes before too, and this is something that's very helpful towards it, is we will, it's going to require, or said another way, it won't count unless you also turn in essentially the script of what it says. So the reason that's really helpful is twofold. One, it makes you think about it more carefully beforehand, so it gives you a better product. Because if you just, and I think for those of you guys who were in class last time, we were talking about using the screencast and using the mouse to point to where you're going. But if you don't really, if you're just winging it, and your mouse is like, oh, so first you're going to come over here, and it's all shaky, and you don't know where you're going, and then you're going to come over here because you're just winging it, it doesn't look very good. Like you said, there's a variance online. Some are really crappy videos. Sometimes there's good ones, but the good ones are done well because they're planned out. And so that's the idea, is you want, if we're going to do these things as a serious substantive project, then it's going to have to be planned out very well and take a lot of thought and development and effort, because that's going to make it look freaking awesome when you're done, right? Because it's going to look like you're a pro, because you will be. It's going to make it look like you're talking, like you know what you're talking about, because you will. And so it'll include writing out a script, which is basically a plan. Here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, and here's what we're going to say. Because maybe you get a little nervous and stage fright as you get halfway through, and you're like, what was I going to say? And then you're like, and then it sounds kind of bad and this and that. So it'll help guide that process. And the second part accomplishes exactly what Alex said a minute ago, which is that by virtue of writing that script process out, it actually makes you think about it and you learn that extra. And it gives you a chance to have somebody else look at it, give feedback and say, ooh, so you said we're going to do this, and you wrote that we're going to say this, that you can read on your script as you're going through. And somebody can look at it and go, yeah, but that's not really right. You got to change this. You can't say this because it actually means this other thing. Follow what I'm saying? So that'll be a part of that project. So it won't just be a digital document. It'll actually have a written component to it. And that'll help, just like any movie, right? So we're in, the LA basin out here, right? So I assume you guys are all movie stars in the Hollywood scene. And so, right, there's always a script for any video. Any movie has a script. Nobody goes out there and just impromptu wings it, right? Will Ferrell might pretend like he does that, but he has a script. right? Although some of those guys are pretty good at it. So, how does that sound? Pretty good? Okay. We'll revisit that, and I will email out. I'll produce a formal document. I loathe to say that there will be a rubric because I don't know that those are always the most useful. They might feel useful as students, but I actually think that there's a real value and a subjective evaluation to this as well. So that's kind of scary, right?
It's very scary.
Yeah. Why is that scary?
Just I have to limit my errors to make sure that what I'm producing is accurate and well done.
Yeah. So if anybody didn't hear Summer, she said it's scary to have a subjective evaluation because you got to do a couple things. One, you have to limit your errors. Two, you have to be really careful. And three, what was the third thing you said?
I just want to make sure that what I'm saying is correct, so just being cautious about my work, basically.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that what you're saying is correct and be cautious about the work. Which, yeah, that can be scary, right? It's a little extra imposition on us. But here's the thing, like, right? The rubrics are always really helpful in school, and sometimes jobs and employers, they give us rubrics to hit and all that. But the reality of it is it's really good practice to also have a component of evaluation be subjective instead of objective, because once you graduate in a couple weeks, a lot of jobs, you're going to have subjective evaluations. Like, it's just how it's going to work. You know, like, because part of it's just, somebody's just going to tell, like, do you kind of know what you're talking about or not? Right? Do you generically, you're sort of gestalt-wise, do you do a good job, or are you a good teammate, or a good leader, or good at this task or something? And a rubric doesn't always capture that. All the rubric means is the person can jump through the hoops sometimes. So I want to kind of practice that skill set too, because it's oftentimes uncomfortable to get evaluated subjectively. We do here as employees too. We have our own rubrics too, but you know, there's a balance to that, and it's a good skill to practice having. So you know, the cool part about that is if we don't have a rubric, then that means you are free to innovate and add your own flavors and do your own things and make it way cooler than I ever think it could have been by my little boxy rubric type thing. See what I'm saying? Which I think is kind of cool. I want to give you guys that creativity. So anyways, before we go down that road, does anyone want to veto it? No nays?
We're all yeas.
All yays? The ayes have it. Okay. All right, so that's kind of cool. We'll develop that. We'll send that over. And I do want you guys to now start thinking about that in the back of your minds. And we're going to do a couple things along that road. Right? First thing we can do is we can make a list of all the different topics that can be covered for that. Because you might not think about half of them. And then you may go, oh yeah, that's right, we could do this, 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 and oh yeah, there's this other thing. Right? And a good way to think about this, for those of you guys who were in the one of the lab sessions Monday, forget if it was the first or second one, we talked about this when you guys left, which is that a good way to start thinking about this project is, what should you tell your classmates that missed that 2 hours of lecture because they were in lab? So they come back up to you and be like, oh man, what I missed, what do I got to catch up? Well, now you got to show them. Now you got to teach them. Start thinking about, what would I create in order to do that? And so I'll start making a list, but you guys start making a list of different sections that you think are topics that can be covered. How's that sound? And then we'll start formalizing it, we'll build a scaffold, we'll develop this in the proper way. Does that sound pretty good? Okay. And I want this to be collaborative. You guys should be giving input to each other's things. And we'll have deadlines of different things where you have to have a script ready. Or at least a topic of sequences of steps that you're going to do in your products. And on those deadlines, when those sequences or steps or written documents are due, you know, you'll have to give them to 2 other classmates and get feedback from them on them about if you're saying things correctly, if the sequences are right, because it'll be collaborative and you guys can give input. Yes, Summer?
So how the lab reports more like an individual project, we're writing our own reports, so it's going to be a group effort or like an individual as well?
It's a good question. Right now I'm thinking about it as individual. We'll see how it develops. It'll be collaborative in that, like I said, there will be trading, and you guys can give feedback and input. So, Jordan will write out his plan. Here's my plan. This is what I'm going to do. For this topic, it's going to go do. I'm going to cover this topic. Here's my steps of what I'm going to click, and here's how we're going to do it. Here's what I'm going to say. Because here's the thing, and this will be in the formalized guidance that I write up and give to you guys. It's only going to count for credit if you can show what you're doing, but also verbally explain why you're doing it. And then show how you're doing it. So here's what I'm doing, here's why I'm doing it, and here's how we're making it happen. Right? The same way I try to teach it, right? And you guys probably do it better than me, right? Probably say it cooler, and I don't know, whatever. But a lot less dorky than I am for it. So, but when you have that list up, Summer, and say Jordan writes that little plan up for what he wants to do, then he'll give you that document, and then you take out your little red pen or little blue pen if you don't want it to seem so mean, right? And just make some comments and say, oh, this is really good, or hey, you forgot this step, or this is awesome. What if you add this other thing in there? And maybe he forgot about that, or he didn't think about that idea. And that'll be the collaborative element. You'll each have your own things, but there will be teamwork involved in it as well, because it's really helpful to do that. Yeah, Stormy.
It's like peer review.
Come again?
It's like peer review.
Yeah, exactly like peer review. So when you submit a journal article, how many of you guys know about the peer review process? How many of you guys don't know about the peer review process?
I know.
What's that?
The excruciating part.
The excruciating process, indeed, yes. So it's imagine that you are a beauty contest contestant, right? Anybody been in a beauty contest? I imagine most of you guys might have.
We're average.
No, it just means you're not vain. Yeah. So imagine you're in this beauty contest, but in order to win, you submit your best stuff, whatever, I don't know what the contest is, I don't really follow those things, but whatever the thing is that you're getting graded on, you have to submit that to 2 or 3 other beauty contest pageant contestants, and they're allowed to anonymously bash that best work you have, and give it back to the judges, and then see if the judges vote you as the winner. That's kind of what peer review is like. It shouldn't be that way all the time. It should be a collegial, sort of nice, helpful, process. But every now and then it gets a little edgy, and you basically submit your paper that you've been working on for years, sometimes your thesis, and then you give it to the journal, and they find 3 of your colleagues, some who might like you, some who might not, right? And you'll never know because they're anonymous. But they know who you are because they can see your name on it. Yeah, a lot of cringes out there, I see, right? And so it's literally like taking your work and bringing it to the haterade bar. Yeah, and they are just slurping down the haterade all day. But that's good. That's good. They should be drinking haterade because their job as reviewers, and your job as reviewers of your peers' work here, is to hold it to the fire. Because that's the only way it's going to be improved, so to speak. And you want to take that critical eye and practice the skills of being critical as a scientist and taking the other point of view and saying, what if this is not right? How would it look? How do I know that what this is proving is actually real? What's the alternative possibilities? And that way, when the public reads a journal discovery, or a scientific discovery reported in a journal, they have a little bit more faith in it because they say, some other experts have read this, and they approved it because they took a very critical eye, they held it to the fire, they gave it their best bashing they could, and it withstood the bashing. It has merit, is the idea. Now, are there holes to that? Yes. Are there exceptions to that? Yes. Are there problems to that? Absolutely at times. But it's a system that reasonably works, with its drawbacks, of course. But it can be scary, it can be harsh, there are no safe spaces, and it requires some thick skin. Now, hopefully we won't need much of that in this class, and you guys will be very collegial and practice being good reviewers that give critical feedback, but in a helpful way. And anyways, that's my little tangent on that. So, individual projects, collaborative guidance. Make sense? Okay. So I will work on crafting more specific guidance and guidelines and steps. Will that be more helpful?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. It will be sent out. And I'm expecting really good products. So and it will take time. It will take mistakes that you'll have to redo again. I mean, just like writing a paper. I mean, but so expect that. It won't be a small little thing. And by the way, like, there will be several of them expected, right? It's not just like one little 3-minute thing. Like, you'll have to be a substantive process. Does that sound pretty good? Okay, cool. So we'll do that. We'll make that happen. We got the extra computers and the software in the labs. We've got them here. We can rotate through as the class moves on, and that'll be the idea. So let's say that this is now. We pivot back to our data. Let's see if it opened. Oh my goodness, there's so much. It's so awesome. It's glorious. Look at how much data there is. All these different subjects. Subject 3 through 54. Now, here's the thing. There's not 54 subjects worth of data. We goes subject 3 through about 27, and then it jumps to 32. It skips a couple subjects through 54. That's on purpose. That's okay. I've already found some really bad subjects during the recording that I just excluded from the initial analysis. Now, here's a little bit of an introduction to this data then too. Okay? So, and we talked about this last class. I've done some pre-processing for you. Okay? So let's just say here, subject 39, it's been re-referenced to the average of the mastoids. It's had a 0.1 hertz high-pass filter applied to it, and it has a 256 hertz downsample applied to it. So it's already had that happen, just like we talked about in class. I forgot I have my sunglasses on. Can I teach in sunglasses? Because I get this light right here. Is that? They say. No. You know they say there's only 2 kinds of people that wear sunglasses inside, right?
No.
Yeah.
Blind people and well, a-holes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to wear these inside, but you know. But I am getting blinded by this light, so I'm going to stand over this way. And so anyways, that's our structure of the data. We can load it in from there. I've already prepped it for you guys. Now, things to keep in mind. We talked about this project a few moments ago. The project shouldn't start with data at this point, right? The idea is to start with data in its raw form, okay? And we'll work on that as the class comes in. This is here for our expeditious use, which means fast. This is going to speed things up for us. So we did this a little bit last class, and this is going to give us tools from which to operate. So that's exciting, and we will work from there. So that was my little spiel for about a half hour, introducing where I want to take the class in the next month or so of direction, and give you guys input. So I believe it's next Wednesday, so the 16th it is. So a week from today, the syllabus has that your drafts are due, right? I'm sure all you guys are familiar with all the deadlines on the syllabus, so I know you guys already know that, but let's just think about this as a reminder. And so what does that mean? For one, it means one thing. If you'd like to do the major primary research paper, then submit. That's when a draft of your introduction, some literature, a couple pages of lit review, a summary of the methods that we've been talking about, a summary of what your hypotheses are that you're going to explore put together a draft, submit it. If you'd like to explore these alternative projects, that means a draft is also due. A draft of the topics you're going to cover. A draft of the concepts that you want to cover. A draft that includes your plan for covering it. What's your strategy? So what I mean by that is like, how are you going to do it? What's your cool idea of how you're going to walk through it? You know, and it could be as simple as I'm going to be very straightforward and just go through these steps and explain what and why. But here's the steps I'm going to cover. And here's all the stages. And it should be comprehensive. It should summarize and demonstrate what you know that you can share with somebody else that you've learned in this class about how to analyze and work with professional level EEG data for cognitive psychology experiments such as learning and memory, brain states prior to stimulus onset. We talked about that a little bit, looking at the pre-stimulus period. It should just, you know, be a draft that sets you up with the roadmap of the direction that you want to take these projects in for your topics that you're going to cover on this. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
You want it in like a paper form or like a step-by-step form? Or,
In which form?
like done it in like in some kind of paper form or like in a like step-by-step?
Like bullet points.
Yeah.
Don't do bullet points. Don't do bullet points. Write it out. Be thoughtful. You know. Now it can have parts of it can have bullet points, of course, right? But you should elaborate on them. The product itself should not be just a bunch of bullet points. It should be thoughtful and written, right? So let's keep our analogy of being in the LA basin here in Hollywood, right? Hollywood script is not just a bunch of bullet points. You know, Brad Pitt says this, then Angelina Jolie says this. Scene opens, scene closes, done. No, I mean, you're going to elaborate. I want you to be a little bit more thoughtful and constructive in it. You know, and there's little subsections you can say. It'll be boom, 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 boom. But, you know, develop it a little bit. And it'll be a template that you can follow. And we'll build from it, and we'll work from it. Does that sound pretty good? Okay. Questions? Okay, so try to have that in by Thursday, or excuse me, next Wednesday. When we show up to class, bring it with on Wednesday, print it, and let's see here. By the end of this week, everyone will have done a lab session. We are working on, I want you to get the lab sessions done more quickly such that we're going to expedite our consent process, of course, just basically start collecting the data. And then hopefully there will be time at the end for Lindsay and Alanis to show you some of the steps that we do to process the data immediately on those computers there. So that'll get you a little bit more acquainted with those computers. It'll get you a little bit more acquainted with what you can do to show some of these educational videos we'll develop and stuff like that from that computer, and get you kind of really starting to pull together, connecting the dots from what we're collecting the data, and then see it become analyzed data that you can learn all on the same site. So if there's time, maybe this first group today, because I've talked a little bit, might not have the full time for that, but the second group has. But either way, at the end of this week, when we come in for class on Monday, bring your reaction papers and your lab reports from this week, and all your different respective times. Just have that in for Monday, and then Wednesday have your drafts that we can begin to work from. Does that sound pretty reasonable? Okay. So in a minute, we'll sort of split off and let the third group go collect their data, and we'll start working on some next things here in class. Remember that this is supposed to be, collaborative now, such that when the third group is going to miss this next little bit of class, one, we'll have these videos available for them to use as a resource, but they're relying on the rest of you guys to help fill them in too, right? When they come in later on today or something like, hey, what did I miss? Or hey, what can we do? Because we're going to be kind of helping each other out in that regard. Does that sound pretty good? Other questions? You guys feel pretty good about this? Okay. Yes, sir.
I just have a question about the lab reports. For the groups that don't have lab for that specific day, do they still do lab reports based off of them?
No, just do the lab report for the day, for the actual data collection session this week. Sound pretty good? So everyone will have one at the end of this week. Reasonable? Okay. Cool. Ready? Alright, whoever's in group 3, we'll see you guys in a little bit. And let's take 5 minutes